Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with the Tuesday edition of Today in Sports Betting. Part one. I'm going to take a look at the two bowl games here this evening. Scott, you pretty excited about either one of these games?
Well, I'm happy that there's college football again
That's
after
good.
having the day off. I know that there was one thrilling NFL game yesterday
Yeah.
between the Bills and the Patriots. I ended up doing the show for Today in Sports Betting yesterday without you because you were under the weather.
That's
But
right. By the way, thank you for doing that. Thanks for grabbing the reins, and thanks for everybody for
no problem.
checking him
Uh,
out.
Shocker, I did not back Cam Newton against the Bills, so I can't really complain about the outcome. I leaned under, game pushed, but Bills won, and they covered. So can't really complain. New England's got some problems, but everyone already knew that. They'll be better next year when all the people that opted out defensively come back. But yeah, they need a quarterback, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I don't think anything's going to happen at all until they get that quarterback thing figured out. So.
Yep.
Would that end up, I thought we'd lost that. Would that end up 46?
It landed 47.
47. So yeah, my pick on the show was 46. It went up, so I ended up losing my play of the day. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I gave it out at 47. So
No, that's fair. At least you got to push out of that. But my premium was, of course, the Patriots. I mean the Bills minus the points. So that
yeah.
was kind of a no-brainer. But I wish they were all that easy. I wish either one of these games were this easy. So let's talk about this first one. I don't have my bowl list up. Scott, what's the name of this bowl?
It's the Cheez-It Bowl.
Oh, that's right. Of course it is. It's the Cheez-It Bowl featuring Oklahoma State and Miami. Two teams that, halfway through the season, people were beginning to whisper about, maybe they were going to make the playoffs. And that's not the way it ended up, Scott. Miami basically fell off the cliff there in the ACC. They took a couple of
Well, there was the one game to North Carolina, which was the cherry on top on that one.
Well, that was the absolute killer for Miami.
They lost to Clemson. Other than that, those are their only two losses.
Yeah, they're a horrible team against the spread. Well, they're not a horrible. They're just not a good team against the spread. But yeah, the game against Clemson, where they thought that see if there's a new sheriff in town, somebody else is going to be able to give them a run for their money. Yeah, none of those things were true. They were on a different level. And then the absolute beatdown against North Carolina, giving up 550 yards rushing, Scott, 10.1 yards per carry. That's not good.
Well, it's worth mentioning that North Carolina also does not run a triple option, so that's even worse.
Yeah, no kidding. So now they get an Oklahoma State team without Chuba Hubbard. So, and that would have been a heck of a matchup. It would have been probably most likely a very bad matchup for Miami. So let's start, I guess, as we always have to this time of year, and even more so this season, Scott. Who's going to be out for this one?
So Miami, as some people know, almost every single year have people who opt out of the bowl game because they went to Miami to potentially compete for a title and to boost their pro status, and then they realize, why do I care about the Cheez-It Bowl? And then you have a bunch of people that just opt out of the game. A couple of people on the defensive line. You have Jalen Phillips, who opted out, and Quincy Roach. And Roach has actually been one of the best pass rushers on the team all season long. So they're both going to be out. You have a couple of other questionable guys for this game, so it could be a little bit more. But they will be missing two of their best defensive pass rushers in this game.
All right. And as far as Oklahoma State goes, besides Chuba Hubbard, who's going to be out for them?
Well, that's the thing, is that it's definitely a lot fewer than Miami. Tylan Wallace, the wide receiver, who has had some injury issues lately, very good receiver, he's actually probable. So he actually did not opt out, which is kind of surprising as he was dealing with a knee injury, but he's expected to play. You have, looking through the rest of the depth chart, L.D. Brown is questionable. He might not play. He was Chuba Hubbard's replacement. However, it is worth mentioning that in the last game of the season, Oklahoma State ended up using this other running back who had 169 yards and 3 touchdowns against Baylor. So it seems like Oklahoma City's cupboard might be relatively full when it comes to running backs because Hubbard was having an awful year. So I actually don't even react that much to the Hubbard absence because he really was awful the whole season. And it seemed like when he got in or when he opted out, Oklahoma City's running game actually got better, paradoxically. So I'm not going to overreact to it that much. You feel the same way?
Yeah, he certainly had a disappointing season because it really, after putting up the year that he did last year, I expected much better out of him, and it just never really could seem to get going. I don't know if he had line problems or if he had some sort of nagging injury, or
I can't argue his line problems because the other guys came in and they were good.
Yeah, well, that's true. They didn't put up Chuba Hubbard type numbers, but they were definitely an improvement over Chuba Hubbard 2020. So,
yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's something he had a nagging injury or if the teams were able to scheme more successfully for him. I don't have an answer. But this is a Oklahoma State team that again they had started really well. They started with 4 straight wins. They were able to beat Iowa State, which was probably their signature win of the season. Then losing to Texas and Oklahoma. Of course, Oklahoma ran them out of the building there in Bedlam. So that's not good. And all in all, before they whipped up on Baylor as a 6.5 point favorite, which that just shows you how much Oklahoma State had fallen, because that's a terrible Baylor team. They failed to cover 5 straight. So who do you like in this one, Scott?
Well, this one's very tricky. Of course, I know we talked about it before it went on air, that both of these teams, I have trust issues with for different reasons, because both teams can either be really good or really bad on any given day. But for the sake of this matchup here, I'm going to only take Oklahoma State. I know that they originally opened up at -3. Now they're down to around -1.5. It was 1, but there has been some buyback on Oklahoma State, mostly because of the announcement that Roach and Phillips are opting out for Miami, and they feel like Miami's pass rush, et cetera, will not be as strong as it should be. But truth is, even though Oklahoma State's results have been a little bit, I'd say, mediocre lately, because they're 3-3 straight up in their last 6 games, I'm actually going to take Oklahoma State. It's mostly just because of the fact that I just think Oklahoma State wants to be there more than Miami does. Miami's just had so many people for the last couple of years who opt out of bowl games. This year's really no different. Their top 2 defensive linemen opted out after Rousseau opted out before the season even started, and he was supposed to be a top 10 NFL draft pick. So you have those 2 guys who opted out, a couple other people who might potentially be opting out in the linebacking core and the defensive tackle position. So I have an issue with Miami's defensive line, which already I had a problem with because they gave up over 500 rushing yards to North Carolina. Now they might be using a bunch of backups. And Oklahoma State, this team might not be great by any means. I think Spencer is a mediocre quarterback. But Wallace being upgraded to probable, I think that kind of sets an example for the team, though, because he's one of the best players on the team. He had some injury issues. He had a built-in excuse to opt out of the bowl game, and he just decided, you know what, I'm going to stick around. And I do think that it kind of passed down to the rest of the locker room that really not as many people opted out from Oklahoma State as you can make the argument should have. They still have Stoner as a very good receiver, still have Wallace. I actually like the running backs that they have there. I actually think that Richardson's actually very good. So I think that he'll do a pretty good job there. We'll see what happens. But for the most part, I've seen Manny Diaz in bowl games. It's not pretty. So for that reason, I'll lean to Oklahoma State.
All right. This is probably my least favorite game of all the bowl games. It's the first one with 2 Power 5 schools going at it, and it's horrific. Full strength, middle of the season, could have been an entertaining game.
I'd pick Miami if it was middle of the season based on everything, but I can't do it. Miami might be down 4 or 5 defensive linemen. I can't touch this team. I got to go with Oklahoma State. You don't agree that it seems like based on the opt-outs that Miami just doesn't really want to be there?
Well, the question is how much better was Miami to start with? Because I think you'll agree that Miami is the superior team, all things being equal, at full strength.
Yeah, so they should be.
So have they taken away enough to give Oklahoma State the edge?
I think you made the argument that based on the fact that Spencer is a mediocre quarterback at best, who has some dual threat mobility.
Actually, I think Spencer's a good quarterback. I think he's above average.
Okay, that's fine. I know that some other people are down on him. I kind of just assumed that you were middle of the pack.
No, I think he's
for college he's fine.
Yeah,
I think he
ain't playing on Sundays.
We can both agree De'Ara King is better, but
yes.
But looking at just the rosters and the projections here, we've talked about two teams so far who had opt-outs. You had the likes of Marshall in the game against Buffalo. They had a couple people that opted out. And, of course, you had the Houston fiasco against Hawaii. Both those teams didn't cover, and then both those teams lost the game. So now you have another situation with Miami where they have a decent amount of opt-outs here. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State because so far the teams that have had a lot of opt-outs have not fared too well. And I'm going to keep backing that train.
All right, and as you know, I've done up until now, I've done a video for each of the bowl games. I did not do these because I was sick yesterday, so this will be my official bowl pick. Boy, do I hate it too. The play that I like the best, Scott, is the under 61.5 in this game. By the way, that's if I'm going to make a bet, that's where it's going to be. But for our purposes, I'll go with you. I'll take Oklahoma State. I think Miami. You have to look at motivation this time of year, and it seems like neither one of these teams really want to be there. But I think Miami wants to be there even less.
Yeah.
So give me Oklahoma State minus the 1.5.
I just think Oklahoma State has enough running backs. I forgot to mention Desmond Jackson as well, who's been very good. So I do think that with Miami's awful run defense in the first place, now potentially missing 4 starting defensive linemen or even some depth guys if they're not officially starters,
right,
could be even worse. So Oklahoma State could easily just dominate the line of scrimmage. And even though Miami's offense has looked sharp at times this season, King is always a question mark with his accuracy. So I think that could be a problem.
Okay. All right. Good enough. All right. Take a look at the other bowl game here, Scott. This one should be far more entertaining as two ex-Big 12 foes go at it here. Colorado Buffaloes take on the Texas Longhorns in the Alamo Bowl. It's kind of the second home for the Texas Longhorns. Texas 7.5-point favorite, 64 is the number. What you got here?
Well, when we've talked about Miami and recent bowl game results and everything of that nature, well, Texas has kind of had some issues also. By the way, your camera shut off. I don't know if that's an accident or
not. It is.
Okay, fair enough. Either way, I can just keep ranting while you fix the camera. But I know that Texas has had issues in bowl games in recent years on kind of having some flat spots. There's a reason why Texas opened up at around 13. Now they're down to 7.5. This Colorado team has been very, very tough all season long, where this team is, they've hung around, which is definitely an important part of, I don't want to say a rebuild, but you know what I mean, where Colorado didn't have many expectations. They kind of overperformed in the Pac-12 before losing to Utah in the finale. Main reason why.
Coach of the year in the Big 12.
Yeah. Sorry, the Pac-12.
Pac-12, brother. Sorry.
The Pac-12, yeah. Sorry. But, yeah, mostly just the fact that Colorado's defense has actually been pretty good so far this season. I know that they ended up suffering a pretty brutal injury to one of their best linebackers in Nate Landman, as he got injured in the Utah game, hurt his Achilles, so he's out, of course. And after he got injured, their defense kind of fell apart against Utah. Texas, though, coming off a 69-point game against Kansas State, I'm obviously not going to overreact to that type of performance. But for me, Texas had a lot of issues so far this season, whether it's been with injuries, opt-outs, just whether Urban Meyer was going to be the head coach or not. Really a lot of distractions. I'm going to lean to Texas here. Am I thrilled with it? No. But Colorado's quarterback in Sam Neuer does have a bit of a shoulder injury. He's probable, but I'm not sure how effective he's going to be. Colorado also had a couple of receivers who didn't opt out, but they one of them got suspended. So you might be a little bit short on the receiving core. But for me, the spread's a little bit high, so I do understand why people might be interested in Colorado. But I'll lean to Texas, especially now that it's available at 7. So I'll take the Longhorns at 7.
Okay, very good. I've got a premium play on this on the side. So let's talk a little bit about this, the total of 64.5, Scott. It looks to me like this is going to be – I don't think there's going to be a lot of big plays in this game. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a grinding out affair. That's really the only kind of game that Colorado knows how to play. They're not a quick strike offense as far as that goes. I'm going to play the under in this one as well. I think we're catching a good number there at 64.5. So my official play on this is going to be Colorado, Texas under in the Alamo Bowl. What do you got?
I'm gonna stay away from the total. It's mostly because of the fact that I really liked Colorado defense earlier in the year. However, once Landman got injured, and he was one of the people on the Butkus list, so he's a well-known linebacker in all of college football. Once he got injured, the whole defense fell apart in the second half for them against Utah. And I know that they've had a couple of extra weeks to prepare for this game, stuff like that. But this team in the second half hit a massive wall once their best defensive player ended up getting injured naturally. And Texas, this offense might be really inconsistent, but I think this team does have the talent to potentially dominate the line of scrimmage, especially since Landman was so good in almost every aspect of coverage and stopping the run. So I'm not going to touch the side. That's another reason. I mean, I'm not going to touch the total. That's another reason why I like the side, because I do think that Colorado's defense, first of all, Colorado has the, I'd say, worse athletes in this matchup, and that's pretty safe to say. I know Texas hasn't exactly recruited well in state, but Texas still has a decent amount of 4 stars. Colorado has more 3 stars. So I do think that Texas should have a talent advantage, and I think that with the absence of Colorado's best defender, they're going to have some problems. So I'm not going to touch the total, but I will lean to Texas on the side.
All right, good enough. And if you're looking for more information on these games, as well as the entire bowl slate or any game going on, just one place to go, and that is winnersandwhiners.com. Make sure you stop by there. Check out the deep dives into every game going on every single day. And as for us, hey, stay tuned. We're going to do an NBA show next. So pick out a couple of the prominent games and give our thoughts on those. So that's going to do it for this edition of Today in Sports Betting. Appreciate everybody watching. Hope every one of those tickets in your pocket turns into cash money back at the window. Take care. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time on Today in Sports Betting.